You ever notice how nobody announces the collapse anymore? No sirens, no mushroom cloud. Everyone's waiting for collapse like it's a season finale. Bad news, we're already in it. It just drops one episode at a time. No explosion, no reset button, no video game respawn like you made a choice that just didn't work out. Just another headline, another temporary emergency, another rule bent just this once. That's not collapse and it's not stability. It's institutional decay in slow motion autopilot. Here's the soothing bedtime story they keep telling us. The Constitution is the greatest governing document ever written. The Constitution is timeless. The founders were geniuses. If something's broken in the Constitution, we can amend it. The founders thought of everything. Right. Cool. Then why does every serious conversation about governing a modern America end with judges improvising, executives stretching boundaries, and Congress screaming on cable news? Because 18th century landowners definitely anticipated AI surveillance, permanent emergency powers, trillion-dollar deficits, and judges serving longer than most dynasties. That's not reverence. That's ancestor worship with a law degree. That's using their work as a security blanket to make everyone feel all warm and cozy. Here's the quiet part that nobody in the government wants said out loud. The Constitution has barely changed in almost 250 years on purpose. The amendment process is so rigid that instead of actually updating the system, we've outsourced many of the necessary changes. And if you require evidence, then let's talk about what's actually happening right now. Every crisis has become a justification for permanent expansion of authority. In fact, executives of both major parties keep testing how far they can stretch the outer limits of executive authority before the courts slap their wrist. The Supreme Court is forced to interpret and then reinterpret old language into modern understanding, with their rulings basically becoming a proxy constitutional rewrite, but with a political agenda. And Congress is mostly stuck in a performative knife fight over culture war crumbs, while structural rot spreads, forcing alphabet agencies to fill in the gaps that nobody, including the founders, ever planned for. Even prominent legal scholars, not radicals, not anarchists, are openly warning that the existing system now poses dangers to collective governance. And we act surprised when checks and balances start wobbling. We're not governed by checks and balances anymore. We're governed by how much can I get away with before someone sues. That's not constitutional stability. That's a legal version of Jenga played by sociopaths. Consider this. We run the most powerful government in human history based on a document written before electricity, antibiotics, or the concept of a standing federal bureaucracy. We pretend lifetime judicial appointments, which made sense when life expectancy was 38 and most everyone rode horses, are about independence. Now it's just policy fossilization. We scream about ethics in government and then act shocked when the system that was designed without enforcement mechanisms produces exactly zero accountability. That's not a bug. That's what happens when a framework outlives its assumptions. This is the part where people get nervous and say, so what, burn it all down? Admittedly, there are some people, even within my own party, who believe that we should. I disagree. I think we should do the most American thing imaginable. Fix the structure instead of worshiping it. This isn't about hating the founders. It's about honoring their actual legacy. They didn't worship permanence. They expected revision. A modern constitutional convention isn't radical. It's overdue. Term limits, so public service stops looking like a retirement plan. Judicial reform, so independence doesn't become untouchability and interpretation doesn't become hereditary power. Real ethics enforcement, not pinky promises. Clearer boundaries on emergency powers, due process, surveillance, and executive overreach. A structure built for a nation of 330 million people, not a fragile republic of 13 colonies with powdered wigs, property requirements, and an abject fear of kings. That's not left or right. That's nonpartisan restoration and maintenance. And here's the part they really don't want us to talk about. Around the world, people are demanding constitutions that reflect current reality. From youth-led movements in Africa to civil unrest in Latin America to democratic reform debates across Europe, constitutional relevance isn't a fringe idea. It's a global baseline. The only radical position left is pretending that nothing needs updating. Hell, computer operating systems change more frequently, and we survive them. People keep asking, why now? Why not later? Because later is what you say right before the floor gives out. Collapse today doesn't look like tanks. It looks like the events that we're already seeing. Normalized exceptions, elastic rules, and power justified by urgency instead of consent. We're shrugging at institutional decay like it's bad weather. Collapse doesn't arrive with fireworks anymore. It arrives one legal precedent at a time. Again, this isn't about hating the founders. It's about honoring them enough to admit that they didn't build a finished product. The real question isn't whether the Constitution is sacred, it's whether we have the spine to admit that what we have is no longer sufficient. So here's the real question. Do we keep pretending an 18th century framework can govern a 21st century superpower? Or do we do the most American thing possible? Finally write a 21st century Constitution before the slow decay we are now watching unfolds to become permanent and breaks completely. Drop your answer in the comments. Disagree loudly, but don't pretend that the system isn't cracking, because we can all hear it, even if some of us choose not to see it.